Welcome back, Gamers Without Borders. Here's the border. We've gone past that. This desk, there was a border between my legs and being visible to you across 12 years. We've gone past that. We have got ourselves 2 more series to go here for everything to go down. And joining me are the caster, that's my name. Joining me are the analysis gentlemen, actually, here for this one. It's Cats as well as Loco. I think I'm going a little bit loco here, locked in the Calaris Dome. But we've got ourselves a really good series coming up, maybe. Cats, let's talk about it. Reynor going up against SpeCial. Realistically, though, in terms of series in the past, it's not really been close. Reynor's done quite well against SpeCial.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Winning the last 7 series that they have played against each other, and Reynor not dropping a map in the last 6, and only dropping 1 map in the best of 5 before then. So it's going to be tough for SpeCial for sure.
And that
even
was
in the Calaris Dome.
In the Calaris Dome, that's right. Yeah, thank you. That was back in 2019. Was that he was able to take it? Loco coming into Reynor versus SpeCial. What are your anticipations, expectations, other than a smash?
Yeah, I definitely do think Reynor is going to be the favorite. I was just having a quick look at the stats as well, and back when SpeCial used to reliably beat him, we have to go all the way back to 2016, 2017. And that's basically back when Reynor was still just a little kid, right? When he was just coming up. He hadn't really found his footing in the late game and all that just yet, and ever since then, it's been a very, very dominant performance by the Italian. That being said, though, we've seen SpeCial play a lot of very fun strategies, right? At Katowice, we saw a lot of Battlecruiser play as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be bringing some of that in this particular series, too. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point there about this match, because for SpeCial, when you're thinking about that kind of record, Cats, you'd probably think to yourself, okay, how am I going to throw a spanner in the works? How am I going to do something a little bit cheeky here to catch out the cheeky Reynor?
Yeah, and I think SpeCial, I mean, is one of those players that does have mech in his back pocket in this matchup. Well, Roddy was mentioning before, and I'm sure he'll mention it during the cast, that Reynor doesn't really sit back and chill against mech, but rather is rather aggressive against it. So he might have SpeCial's number. But if we're looking for silver linings, if we're looking for a little bit of hope for SpeCial, he did do amazing at Katowice off of his TVC primarily, right? Beating some very strong Korean Circs in the process. So maybe there is a little bit more hope than the last 6 times and the last 5 times before that.
Oh, you bring up a good point. I mean, I think in the group stage, I think he beat 3 Zergs, one of them which was DRG, Elaser, and I can't remember. Anyway,
it was Roddy is casting the game. Okay, he's like
he'll remember.
I can't remember all of those games exactly either. But,
yeah, but he got close to actually moving on to the bracket stage until he played against Hero, which obviously very different matchup, Loco. But if we look at the other side of the card here, whilst we're taking a look at the map vetoes, it's Reynor. Let's talk stylistically, because if any word was to kind of describe Reynor, it really is like a whirlwind. He's so fast, so agile, and able to really bring the fight to the Terran.
Yeah, when we talk about fast players in StarCraft 2, I mean, all the top-level players are very high in APM, right? Like, they're all quick players. They're all capable of hitting, like, 3, 4, maybe even more than that as far as APM goes. But Reynor's one of those guys who will consistently have 500 average actions per minute over the course of a game. And you can see that reflected in a macro game, especially by basic things, like, for example, creep spread, Zergling micro, just little things that just look incredibly crisp. And if he gains an advantage in the earlier stages of the game, it's going to be very difficult, I think, for SpeCial to obtain a victory.
Fair. Cats, your thoughts on Reynor and how he may approach this? What are your thoughts?
No, completely agreed. He knows that his main advantage over the other players is speed. I don't think that there's anyone that's faster than him, straight up. And like Loco said, I mean, you see that reflected in just how well he can do everything that he needs to do, but also in how often he tests his opponents, right? He has the extra actions to try for Ling Rambites, for example, and because Lings are the fastest unit in the game, nothing can catch him. So you can literally just try. If it doesn't work, you just back away and nothing can catch you. And Reynor just tries and tries and tries. Door open, game over.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, as we've broken this down. Let's see if SpeCial can change up the status quo. Obviously, we've seen some upsets here today, especially through that Korean bracket. But now, let's head over to our commentators here for Reynor going up against SpeCial.
All right, guys, we are getting ready to move into this next series. I feel like the analysts hyped this up quite a bit. And Kev, I know that you're hyped about this because this should be a fun one. It's going to be good old Reynor facing off versus SpeCial here.
Yeah, I think all the Zergies are getting a bit hyped around this because it's not just Reynor now. Obviously, the next series will have Serral. So if you are a Zerg player, you got to be particularly stoked about this part of the broadcast. I think Reynor against SpeCial could be a lot more fun than what we thought it would be a while ago because of that amazing Katowice performance that SpeCial had. I'll be dead honest, coming into Katowice, I was hyped around a lot of players, but Juanita was kind of like one of these guys where he's gonna have a couple good games, but that's probably it, right? No, that wasn't it. He indeed went 3-1 on that first day or the first 2 days of group stage play, and then was one series short from potentially even winning the group. In the end, he got very unlucky with the way it played out. He did drop out in the group stage, but with a perfectly fine 3-win, 2-loss record. So SpeCial looked very good. I feel like this is the first time we see him in a big series ever since. Obviously, he tried his luck in the GSL qualifiers. Those were just a bit brutal for him because he lost to, well, Hero and Solar. There is obviously no shame in that. Reynor on the other end, he's been playing a lot of random lately, but no random today. All Zerg, and I'm sure that he is eager to make a statement that he's still one of the very best players in the world. So I think plenty of reasons to look forward to this one.
Well, let's not dilly-dally any further. We're going to be starting up here in the top left-hand side of the map. On top of the red Zerg player representing Basilisk, he is Reynor.
And in the bottom right side, we are looking at the main base of our Blue Terran, hailing from Mexico, but currently in Korea, like he has been for the majority of his life in the last 10 years. This is Sidestorm Gaming's SpeCial. No zoom?
Unfortunate. Yeah, well, we do have that good old spawning pool coming down nice and early on there for Reynor, so you can put on a little bit of that early ling pressure. But I know we talked a lot about, and I know on the desk they talked a lot about kind of like recent form for Reynor and SpeCial and stuff. I mean, historically between Reynor and SpeCial, Reynor has really been pretty dominant over SpeCial. And I think the thing that always strikes me about that is when two players have a history and everything, I don't just look at who typically wins overall in the series. It's also a question of like how many games does the other player typically take, and I think that was the kind of rough thing looking at their match history is a lot of their recent matches Reynor is taking like 2-0, 3-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 3-1, and it's really, you have to go back to like 2019 before you really see SpeCial actually taking maps off of Reynor in tournaments.
I mean, I wasn't totally sure if I was going to go here, but if you're talking about history and you want to talk about a little bit of how they've done against each other in the past, there is one thing that makes Reynor versus SpeCial extra special for me, no pun intended there, and that is that there was a time that we had a tournament called the WESG. It was a very big tournament in China, and they actually allowed everyone to participate, so you didn't need to be 16 yet. There were some rumors about this Italian kid being kind of good, but unfortunately for that Italian kid, he was 15 back then. We're talking about 2017, so he was not allowed to play in any of the DreamHack events yet, and he couldn't quite show us how good he really was. But this tournament in China did allow him to play. Reynor made the journey over from Italy to China, and he was in the same group with SpeCial. Second group stage, they both defeated Ayasonu, so it came down to SpeCial, one of the best Terrans, maybe the best Terran in the foreign scene, versus this 15-year-old Italian kid, and Reynor. 15-year-old Reynor won 3-0 back then, and I think at that point a lot of the alarm bells went off for all the diehard StarCraft fans out there. Were like, whoa, this kid could actually be pretty special. Now, he did get bopped in the following series by Maru, but hey, as a 15-year-old, you can't expect to beat both SpeCial and Maru in a row. But that was, for me, one of the first big series that Reynor ever played, where he showed us how truly special he really is.
Yeah, what a debut that was. But now we do actually have some interesting special tactics, you could say, coming out over here on the top right-hand side. As SpeCial throws down a proxy there, and the Overlord path is not really online to scout this out. I can't really think of any reasons why you'd be sending a Ling around. This is such an unlikely place to proxy, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's also just not something we see super often in this matchup. We're all very familiar with the Hellion drop in TVP, especially if you like to watch Clem, because Clem busted out every single best of 3 in this day and age. But in this matchup, it is quite rare. We're also not going for a medevac here. We're just going for a very quick Liberator. So SpeCial's idea is clearly bring the fight to Reynor. I'm not just going to sit back and let Reynor do Reynor things, who open up, by the way, with a pool before hatchery. We didn't quite get to talk about that. that. I was at first wondering if Reynor was going to do one of these weird roach builds that he does like to bust out every now and then, but it seems like it was just for safety. Maybe worried about SpeCial proxying him here in game 1 or game 2, but yeah, I kind of like the idea of SpeCial being the aggressor here. Why not?
Yeah, and he's definitely going to be able to set a little bit of the pace of things. Now, the Hellions and the Reaper have been dancing around. I love that he was able to snipe off a creep tumor there, but this is kind of like the key moment where I'd love to see him just get really up in Reynor's face so that the Liberator can pair together with this. And I mean, look at this, most of the queens pulled away.
I mean, that was only 2 drones. I thought it was going to be 3 drones in the end, but I'm sure Reynor is a little bit surprised where he's like, whoa, wait a minute, a Liberator in my natural. I also have Hellions 4 minutes and 30 seconds into the game. I think at this point, Reynor is experienced and good enough to know that something is not quite adding up, and there is a good chance that this starport was proxied. Unfortunately for SpeCial, the Lib, I kind of felt that it showed up at an awkward moment, right? Because if the Liberator reveals itself while the Hellions reveal themselves, that's where it becomes hard, but it might still get very hard for the Italian here, as the link count is a bit underwhelming. Liberator is making just this rain from above in the main base, and the Hellions are going to town on the drones, and the drones are also pulled away from the Lib, so the Hellions can get a couple of great shots off. What a start here for SpeCial.
Yeah, even as some of these Hellions are getting cleaned up, another one of the Liberators pops out from that starport, shuts down mining at another one of the bases. 2 bases are effectively not mining until just now, as a couple of drones start going over there, but hardly any mining actually happening right now. Reynor really going to be hurting from all that harassment.
That's a magnificent start for SpeCial. We already said that we like the idea of him being the aggressor, and at first I was like, I kind of expected more of the first Liberator poke, but it wasn't about the 4 Hellions. It was about the moment that the Hellion count would increase to 6, 8, and the Reaper's still there. As the starport floated away, but it's going to land again, so we're going to keep a close eye on that. Another Liberator. Oh my goodness, Juanito is busting out all the stops here, but so far so good for the underdog.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. If you're going to be going for battle mech behind this, you're going to mostly be relying on those factories. You don't really need the medevacs and everything as much. So why not use that as starport for additional Liberators as he continues to get even more drone kills. Oh, every drone kill hurts so much as Reynor's already lost so many. Replenishing them, even if you're trading out evenly versus the Hellions at this stage, is not going to be a good feeling.
And we can't forget that Reynor also lost a couple of links on the other side of the map, so he has even less units to A, keep extra Hellions at bay, and B, there's just no way for Reynor to find any counter-aggression at this point, and it'd be an insane move to make a whole bunch of links in this phase in the game, because that means that he cannot economically recover from all the drones that he's lost so far. SpeCial is honestly playing an absolutely amazing game, and I'm not sure if Reynor fell asleep. Maybe the TVTs went on for a little bit longer than he expected, but game 1 is all SpeCial so far, but it is kind of hard to close games out sometimes with Battle Mech, because we saw Oliveira also having a dream start against Lambo, but that game still got very close and competitive.
Yeah, I can already see Reynor's face right now as he's cracking his knuckles thinking, all right, it's going to be a great YouTube thumbnail if I can make a comeback from this game, because it is going to be a little bit tough. The SpeCial's set himself up to be in a really good position, but like you said, Battle Mech not great at really quickly closing out the game, although if you're able to find a couple of these queens really early on and get the pickoffs, it can start to snowball. It seems like Reynor's doing a great job with the multi-prong aggression so far.
I love the multitasking of SpeCial as well, though. He never just sends in a single Liberator at once. It's always while the Hellions and Liberators or Hellions and Cyclones are keeping Reynor busy. That's where he's going to try to find a few more drones. And Reynor is actually playing double Evo melee Carapace. As far as I know, this is not normally what Zerg players really want to go into when they play against this Battle Mech style. And if you do ever want to play double Evo upgraded links, I feel like you need a monstrous economy and you just need to have complete map control. Reynor has neither of those things.
I wonder if he feels like he's been forced into it based on how things went earlier on, where he just couldn't really afford to make a lot of the tech transitions, or even just to try to go for like a massive swell of units or something. I wonder if he just feels like he was forced into it.
Yeah, there's a good chance that he feels that with the amount of damage he's taken, going for roaches after a start like that is just not a play, because roaches are good, but obviously can be a bit more expensive than lings, and you need them in very big numbers, and ideally you need to set up surrounds or rely on infestors, for instance, what Pig really loves to see. But Reynor probably feels that he can afford none of those things, so that he may as well try to stabilize on Link Bane, try to find a little bit of damage with some run-bys, and then slowly but steady make your way into a whole bunch of Hydras.
Baneling's going to try and collide, and they do manage to connect with a handful of the Cyclones, and Ling's coming in from behind as well, as the Hellions are trying to turn into Hellbats. They don't get a single shot off. So this is going to be a full-on cleanup over here for Reynor. Hellions on the other side are managing to sneak on by, and 10 workers have gone down, but they do get cleaned up. Kind of some weird back-and-forth trades there. I feel like Reynor got the better end of the army trade, but still ends up losing some more workers in the process.
Yeah, I think ideally Reynor split off those units to the bottom left to find a bit of economic damage himself, but then realized like, nope, I need to bring these units back, otherwise I could be in danger of losing the queens, and then it really is curtains for this game. SpeCial has been relentless with liberated production. He's just building one lib at a time. I feel like it's ultra unique that we see a proxy starport 10 minutes into a TVZ still going strong, and yes, it did move a little bit, but that's obviously not something we see every day, and I think at this point it even has an add-on. Like, how insane is that? Having an add-on starport against Reynor in the top right side of a map like Dragon Skills? Oh, it's a tech lab actually.
Oh, finally found it as well. So Reynor will eventually take care of it, but not before another Liberator actually manages to pop on out. He might even be able to save it with the Hellions, and there it is. Starport saved. Might be able to start up another Liberator after that one.
So where would you love to see SpeCial go from here? Like, what is the way to close this game out? Because a lot of things have gone well for him, but we all know that if you don't get Reynor out of a game, the comeback becomes more and more likely. And at this point, Reynor is on 1-1 upgrades. He is starting to produce Hydras, and he's got 77 drones. What do you think is the play for SpeCial?
That's a tough call. I mean, I do like that he's continuing to just try and keep Reynor a bit in check with the economy and everything. But like you said, the longer that you give him, the closer and closer he's getting to, say, Hive Tech, which is now starting up with the Infestation Pit finishing up. So I think he has to try and just... He's been able to find a lot of economic damage, but he hasn't actually really won any real army engagements, I would say. So I think this is like the really tough part. BattleMech is really good at finding bits and pieces of damage and skirmishing. But I think I like the idea of him bringing these siege tanks out a little bit further if he wants to actually try and take a real fight.
I kind of think it's time, right? We have double sensor towers, so we can actually anticipate run-bys a little bit earlier as well. Even managed to produce a second Raven from the starport in the top right side, producing 5 tanks at a time, and I think we already have 6 or 7 tanks out on the map. I'd say it's kind of now or never for SpeCial, because you don't want to let Reynor get up to Hive Tech. He will immediately start Viper production, and at this point, SpeCial has absolutely nothing to deal with Vipers.
Yeah, Helen's going to be swinging in on the left-hand side. Maybe going to try and draw Reynor's army a bit out of position, as a lot of Lings and Hellions and Hydras have committed to dealing with these Hellions. That allows SpeCial to get into an opportune position on top of this hatchery on the right-hand side. And you can see Reynor is just almost ready to give it up. He is looking like he might try and pounce on this, but... SpeCial backs off. He's going to leave one Cyclone to finish the job.
I think he was trying to bait Reynor into a bad fight. Reynor does build up 5 Vipers, by the way. It seems crazy, but I do like it because he needs them to deal with the insane siege tank count that SpeCial's currently working with. It was a couple of Hellions, a couple of Liberators, a couple of Cyclones, and all of a sudden we're looking at 12 or more tanks even on the map, making their way to the top side. Juanito knows that he's on the clock. He does not want to see Reynor casually sit back, get a bunch of energy on these Vipers, so he's just going for it, base after base, and getting a couple of drones in the process as well. I honestly love everything about the way that SpeCial has played this game, and he's looking mighty fine here in game 1.
He's looking fantastic, and this is not the kind of position that a Zerg player wants to try and break into, especially with an anti-armor missile landed on those Hydras. But the siege tank line through that little choke point, there's just no way Reynor can take a fight over here, but he's going to have to try. Blinding clouds are going to be coming down on top of a lot of the siege tanks, so he will be able to shut down a majority of them. The choke point advantage going to be mostly negated here as the Hydras come in and clean up house. But even after all of those great trades there for Reynor, it's only even-ish supply, and Reynor's losing all the hatcheries on the left-hand side of the map.
Yeah, losing this hatch is obviously a catastrophe for the Zerg, because that means that we are now in a 14-minute game, and it's a 3-hatchery Zerg. Yeah, that's just absolute no bueno. Especially in Legacy of the Void, after 12 minutes, your main base is pretty much dried up. Like, I'd be surprised if Reynor has a whole bunch of resources left in the main, and we can even see that the natural is starting to run rather thin. Reynor needs a miracle. He needs non-stop abducts, but above all, he needs to get not 1, not 2, but probably indeed 3 extra bases. Otherwise, he can never hang into this game. And I have the feeling that by the time that Reynor can defend all those bases, SpeCial will be ready to attack once more.
Yeah, and even just affording those 3 bases, I mean, that's almost 1,000 minerals, which is 1,000 more minerals than I think Reynor really wants to be able to afford to make, because he doesn't actually have enough army to really contend with even little squadrons like this from SpeCial, unless he's just completely in position to deal with it. This is a nice catch. I'm definitely going to commend Reynor on being able to react eventually to that little run-by harassment, but it's going to be about the follow-up attack that comes from SpeCial. When SpeCial finally realizes, oh, you just took 3 hatcheries all at once? Okay, well, all I have to do is shut down 1 or 2 of them, and I'm still going to be in a fine position.
I would love to see the income advantage graph here, by the way, if one of our 2 lovely observers can bring that up. It's actually not as dramatic as I thought it would be. Maybe SpeCial's saving up a bunch of scans or something, or he doesn't want to overly drop mules, but it really feels that he should be mining a whole lot more than Reynor at the moment, since Reynor has so little to work with, and it's only a 65 drone Zerg. Bleeding extractors kind of say it all, right? It's like, okay, that's also not something that is supposed to happen. But what we said before still stands. The longer the game goes on, the more and more likely it is that Reynor can make a magical comeback, and he got 9 freaking Vipers on the map. I knew we had 5 earlier, Fear Dragon, but we got up to 9. Hey, if you abduct 9 tanks or even more, all of a sudden SpeCial is going to be in a bit of trouble as well defensively. Parasitic Bomb goes down, and the first Vikings cannot deal with all these Vipers.
Yeah, they do force some of the Hydras into the tank line, but I love these little attacks here from SpeCial. I mean, look at most of the Hydras pulled back to deal with 2 Hellions. It's little things like that. SpeCial buys himself a bit more space. That means that the Vipers are going to have to deal with better set up siege tanks. It's going to allow SpeCial to kind of reallocate his resources and positioning. He's really bought himself a lot more time, but even more Vipers now in the mix.
I need, well, I want to say double abduct as another parasitic bomb goes down. Abduct landing on the Cyclone. SpeCial is going to lose a lot of units here, and there's very little he can do about it. I know that he built a barracks earlier to potentially get a couple of goals, but here you can really see the power of that hive tech unit, the Viper, in full force. As Reynor is getting free pickoffs left, right, and center, there's very little that SpeCial with his current army can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, there's another couple of those siege tanks getting picked up. Like you said, it's just abduct hell or abduct heaven if you're a Reynor fan there. Even the Vikings getting abducted into these Hydras. Now, the Hydras are in siege tank fire still, so they do have to back off for the moment. And again, SpeCial continue to do this little Hellion harassment on the other side of the map. But Reynor, he is just taking such cost-efficient trades with those Vipers. If he can continue that, I mean, what's the breaking point for SpeCial? When does it finally all start adding up and Reynor's able to like say that, yes, I'm actually able to maybe push in and take out a base or something?
It almost feels that SpeCial's plan here is just to get punched in the face eventually until Reynor gets tired of it, right? Where it's like, okay, you can abduct all these units, pick up all these air units with parasitic bomb and abducts, but I'm just going to rebuild them over and over again because I'm a Terran on 5 bases, and if I can just continue to cripple and hurt your economy, I am going to be fine, and no matter how much value you get out of those Vipers. That is an interesting strategy. It's an ambitious strategy, but it's crazy enough that it just might work.
Are Reynor's knuckles going to be bruised from punching SpeCial in the face? We're about to find out. Vipers are going to be able to abduct a couple of these Vikings over here. But even with the Vipers there, that choke point against the tanks on the high ground is not really a fight that I thought Reynor would want to take, but he's potentially going to look to try and trade a bit over there. Not the greatest trade so far for Reynor.
I think he was a bit low on Viper energy. We're going to go for it again. A few abducts will land. Do we see a blinding cloud or 2 as well? Yes, but after abducting all of the tanks to the front lines, the fungal missed there on the Vikings. That's an unfortunate one for Reynor, but obviously another pretty solid fight with a lot of Hydra surviving. And it almost feels that these kind of games can bring the best out of Reynor, where it's the true never say die attitude that kicks in, and he will just refuse to give up without at least putting up a fight and fighting till the last unit. And he's starting to make this pretty dicey for SpeCial. SpeCial is going to try to go up to 6 bases now, trying to land that orbit on the right side. Reynor has a little link there to keep track of that. Great scouting, even 19 minutes into this game. SpeCial still here though with a pretty terrifying army, and Reynor's going to have to clean it up one more time. Here we go with the Vipers. Blinding clouds for days. Is there anything that fights actually after all the blinding clouds?
Yeah, I mean, there's still some Hydra, so you will eventually get a cleanup on all these siege tanks, but it's very, very costly. And I think the biggest fear that I have over here, Kev, is that, yeah, I think a lot of the Vikings did die. All these siege tanks are dying, which is a great pickup here for Reynor. But Reynor lost I think every single one of the Vipers there. The Vikings did their job, and that was what was the linchpin of Reynor's army. So can he continue to push forward? I don't actually know that he can into 4 siege tanks being rallied out from supply or from production.
How many kills on that Zergling? I feel like this was the moment to check how many links, how many SCVs that single Zergling killed there, because we see 10 SCVs dying, and I'm pretty sure that was the only thing that was happening, so that Ling will be remembered. SpeCial obviously is starting to burn through his bank, right? Because producing 5 or 6 tanks and 4 Vikings at a time, that is not cheap, no matter how rich you are. So you can actually see that SpeCial's having a slightly harder time maxing out too at this point, as Reynor has dropped the 20-minute Roach Warren and is now building roaches. I hope he does not forget to research roach speed, because as far as I know, he doesn't have that yet.
I love the idea of 3-2 roaches that don't have roach speed. Like 20 minutes into the game, that is exactly what I feel like this series needs.
Okay, there we go. I was like, I'm not crazy, right? Because the Roach one just finished up. I mean, I am crazy, mate, but Roach speed is on the way, and that's obviously very important. The main reason why Reynor, I think, is going into Roaches over Hydras is mostly just because he has no money to rebuild Hydras and Vipers at the same time. And hey, the Roaches can be pretty damn good too, and they are a whole lot cheaper than Hydras are.
They most certainly are. Now, the Cyclone is going to get taken care of eventually by the Lings. I think they win that fight. I thought they win that fight, but maybe not. At the same time, Reynor's going to be going for the real fight up here on that high ground position that SpeCial so dearly loves. He's got a great spread of these siege tanks. I want to note again, not that many Vipers. Even the Vipers actually mostly getting taken out before they can throw down too many blinding clouds. So SpeCial is going to be able to get some good shots off, but overwhelming numbers are going to eventually favor Reynor here.
One Cyclone is going to kill that hatchery in the top right side, as there are more Hellions driving by, just roasting and toasting drones everywhere we go. Reynor did manage to kind of win that fight in the end, and Roach speed still not done. We just saw a fight 20 minutes into a game with a bunch of slow Roaches running into tanks, and they kind of came out on top. Not necessarily because of them, mostly the Hydras, the Ravagers, and the Vipers helping out, but look at these slow Roaches battling, and this is a very important base for SpeCial. He does not want to lose it. He knows that he can't afford to lose it, because then his own economy is going to be in shambles. We are even fighting with the SCVs 22 minutes in. Beautiful micro on those Cyclones there, by the way, towards the right, and that in the end will be enough for SpeCial to take the 1-0 lead. Sweet baby, you know what, Fear Dragon, that was one hell of a game.
SpeCial earned the heck out of that victory there, because while it did start looking closer and closer as that game was going on, especially when Reynor started getting up the 9 Vipers that started abducting everything, you really have to commend SpeCial, because he just looked like he was in full control and fully dominant in the early stages of that game. He really, really earned a nice lead there, and it did take him a while to close it out, but I mean, that's fair. It's versus Reynor. Of course, it's going to be difficult to close things out, but goddamn, did SpeCial do a great job that game.
Yep, love the strategy, love the execution, and gotta give kudos to Reynor, of course, for A, hanging in there, and B, sometimes with just 8 to 10 links, still getting perfect wraparounds on a couple of these Cyclones and Hellbats, making sure that they would not be able to run away, so the Hydras could do their thing. I love the excess amount of Vipers that he went for, because I truly felt that was the only way that Reynor was going to be able to get a couple of good fights, and he did manage to get good fights. It's just in the end, SpeCial was economically ahead all game, every game. It got close, but fortunately for SpeCial, not close enough.
Yeah, I also want to know that I think this is one of the first times I've seen a Zerg player have so many Vipers, but not enough actual Hydras toward the end of a fight, that the Zerg player is abducting siege tanks into a spot, and then realizing that since the siege tanks aren't actually just dying immediately to the Hydras, he starts throwing down blinding clouds onto the places he's abducting. I'm like, this is a little bit absurd.
Yeah, no, that happened a few times, and obviously one time it was like 5 tanks at once, so it was like, yeah, I can kind of get that, because you don't want to see those 5 tanks fire a nice volley in the middle of your pack of Hydras, but even later, with when the numbers got a bit smaller, we saw that a few times. It's just a really cool game by SpeCial, where, you know, he just said, I'm not going to sit back, I'm not just going to try to make it all count when I move out for the first time and then have a Reynor run by, just kind of destroy my entire game plan. No, it will be me who's dictating the pace of the game. I'm going to be in your face, and you're going to have to react to me. And we can't forget that it all started with Reynor opening spawning pool before hatch. I don't want to say that that is like what started it all, but, you know, it's kind of something that the confident players do, right? Where it's like, oh, as long as I don't get proxied, I'm going to be fine. I don't need to go hatch. hedge first. That makes me very curious if we're going to see that again, or if the man will go hedge 3 first. We're about to find out on Babylon. That's a Terran-friendly map, by the way. In the bottom right side, representing Basilisk, we are looking at the main base of the world champion of StarCraft 2 in the year 2021. This is Reynor.
And over here in the top left-hand side of the map, the blue Terran player, the king of Latin America from Sidestorm Gaming, he is SpeCial.
Hey man, that title belongs to Cham right now, okay, Feardrag?
That's true. You know, the title, it's like the, do you ever follow the unofficial world champion title?
Yeah, I did a while ago, not over the last few years, but I know that was a thing in the early years of StarCraft, and it was very fun until a couple people got the belt and then they retired, so that made it a bit silly.
Yeah, that always made it a little bit tougher. For those who are wondering, if you're newer to StarCraft or something, the unofficial world champion, I believe that like there was some event that they crowned a world champion, and then people just decided that the world champion belt would just be passed around if you beat the world champion. So it wasn't about winning a world championship. It was just about beating whoever had the belt. And you just get to see how it got passed around. I feel like that's, even though right now I feel like SpeCial is not the Latin American champion, I feel like he's probably still got the Latin American championship belt right now.
Yeah, if they play it again, there is a good chance. So we're going for the low ground depot, low ground barracks. Just one barracks for now. We gotta be building another one. Okay, factory too. This is an interesting opening by Juanito.
Yeah, I've seen a few more Terran players opening up with these kind of like low ground wall-ins and stuff. And Kev, don't get me wrong, I actually think it's like really fun and cool to see. I always get a little bit nervous when they spawn in the position that SpeCial spawned, because there aren't a lot of things that affect the game in terms of whether you spawn to the left or the right or the top or the bottom. But add-ons for Terran players, Kev, that is one of the things that gets affected.
It definitely is, but it also feels that they think about that, right, in this day and age. Yeah. And obviously we're not playing Wings of Liberty StarCraft anymore, where the Baneling Buster with crappy economy is inevitable. And will the Zerg player be able to get enough damage done? As the first Reaper, by the way, of SpeCial, just ran into the natural, went for a drone, got the drone. That's obviously the advantage of building your barracks on the low ground. The Reaper comes out a bit earlier and is often able to get a few more shots off. So our follow-up is multiple Reapers with a Hellion. We're building a CC, but in back-to-back games, we're going to proxy the starport. This time around, though, Reynor spots it very early on.
Oh, and I think a big thing from Reynor is that as soon as he spots it with the Overlord, he backs off with the Overlord. The Overlord has more vision than the actual SCV or that actually building starport. So SpeCial didn't see the Overlord saw SpeCial.
Yep, Reynor is completely okay with letting that finish up, and only once it's finishing up, that's when he wants to take care of it. But he also knows that right now there is nothing that he can do about it. As long as Zergling speed is not done, you're not randomly producing a bunch of slow Zerglings and rallying them into the starport, because you're going to lose all of them against the much faster Reaper Hellion combo. So for Reynor right now, it's all about just making sure that he keeps tabs of what is happening in the center of the map, and then obviously get a Spore Crawler in the correct position, and always leave at least one queen in your main base to deal with that Liberator.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to one of the earlier series that was played with Lambo and stuff, they were talking about how sometimes maybe you make those blind Spore Crawlers against your opponent, and that can set you a bit behind if they're not really going to be super useful. Reynor can take confidence in making that Spore Crawler and saying, yeah, I'm definitely going to be utilizing this. So he's going to feel like he's in a much more knowledgeable situation. He's already going to have the Spore Crawler buried. He's going to have two queens ready to intercept that Liberator, and it's going to be a lot harder for SpeCial to get anything close to the damage he got done in the first game.
Reynor made a pretty big 12 Zerglings just a few minutes ago, or just a few moments ago, rather. Probably not minutes. Minutes is a very long time. As the Liberator is going to siege up in the natural, Reynor wants to get the wraparound on the Reapers and the Hellions, gets a little bit of a surround, but definitely does not get all of the units. As the Liberator sieges up in the natural and does get 4 drones, you combine those 4 drones with all the Zerglings that Reynor made, Fear Dragon, and Reynor's economy, I think it's safe to say, is nowhere near as good as he would love to see it. So it's very important that these links get some value, and they do find 2 Hellions very quickly. I don't know if they can win this fight though against all these Reapers and the Hellions. I feel like in a choke point the Terran unit should be fine here. We do manage to get into a choke point, but in the end it seems like the link numbers were just high enough, so Reynor did in the end get the value he was looking for from those links.
Yeah, great cleanup over there. And that actually does make things a little bit more annoying for SpeCial. He's, of course, still going to be making a bunch of Marines behind this and everything as he does all this add-on swap around. A little bit awkward and a little bit cluttered there in the natural just because of making all your production in the natural makes things a little bit awkward there. But eventually, SpeCial will now have to also think about, okay, when I secure my third base, I'm not going to have like the safety Hellions and stuff that I can leave behind, which is, I think, especially always useful against players like Reynor who really do like doing those kind of run-bys and everything. But there's a nice and early Roach Horn being thrown down from Reynor. Does he realize what he's up against?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, how do you scout against that, right? You can send in a link, but it's obviously going to get one shot at. It's a whole lot of barracks is going down. It could be that Reynor maybe prefers playing roaches on this map regardless of what he's up against, because Babylon is just one of the best Terran maps out there. I think a lot of Terrans will tell you that this is their favorite map of the current map pool, just because there's a lot of side blockers in the center of the map, a lot of ramps where tanks can hide behind but can still shoot across the hills, makes it hard for the Zerg to get the dream engagements, and obviously the natural can kind of protect your own third base, sometimes even your fourth base as a Terran player. It's just a lot of little things that make this map great for Terran and make it pretty difficult for a Zerg to get a whole lot going. But yeah, I don't know. I almost never feel that Reynor wants to play roaches against Terran unless he really has to.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out in a little bit after the Evo chambers finish up and everything, because he had that Roach Horn, but he has just been making drones since then, and now he fires up a couple of links. He hasn't actually utilized it, and he did get a link into the natural and saw all the additional barracks, saw the tech lab on the barracks specifically, and should have a good idea of things. But no, we do still see the range upgrades and everything coming out, Roach speed coming on out. So Reynor is, in fact, really wants to actually commit to going for these Roaches.
Yeah. It is interesting. It's obviously very important for SpeCial as well to pick up on that, because the moment he does pick up on that, he can just kind of increase the tank count a little bit, get a bunker or two up, because bio units are great against roaches, but obviously you do need to have the numbers, and you don't want to move out too early as a Terran against roach builds. That is why a lot of Terrans sometimes struggle in, getting the job done against Zergs that make a lot of roaches, ravages, links, since they move out too early. As a Terran, you really don't have to do a whole lot, as long as this is the composition that you're going up against. Just get a whole lot of army supply, and we're not talking about 50, 60 or 70, no, 100 plus army supply. That's when we can start thinking about moving out. Cancel.
Yeah, gonna have some time before he gets to that point, but well, we're gonna see a couple of these little bits of skirmishes here and there. I like that Reynor's been pretty active with these lings, finding little pickoffs here and there. A couple of Marines just doing some scouting information, but as combat shields and armory finishes on up, we're going to see SpeCial getting a better and better defense set up, but is he actually in time over here? Siege's barely siege before the Roaches are potentially looking to just pounce on things, and actually Reynor just backs off, huh?
Can't believe that Reynor doesn't find that starport, by the way, on the left side that has built a reactor. Obviously a very exposed starport that if Reynor would have just sent one link to scout for the fourth base, then at least he would have been able to get on top of the starport. You kill the reactor, you force it to fly home, and you slow down future medevac and down the line Liberator or Viking production. Unfortunately for Reynor, he did not see it, did not expect it to be there. And at this point, he's just working on his way towards Hive. He's like, all right, drop the Hydra then. We can slowly but steady start thinking about Lurkers, right, as we have the missile attack upgrades too. But at first, I guess the key is to get a couple Vipers, because Vipers are always good, not just against Battle Mech, but they're also very good against Bio Tank, because if you take care of the tanks, well, suddenly the Bio becomes a bit more doable.
Yeah, Bioforce is going to be a bit scary here for just these Roaches to deal with. A couple of Lings come in to reinforce, and eventually I thought Reynor would be able to take this fight, but he is losing quite a bit over here. Nice dodges on the Biles as well. Ooh. Dodges the fungal growth at the same time, and SpeCial is going to be able to back off, taking some pretty okay trades there.
Gumio defeating Hero was a surprise to me, but if SpeCial defeats Reynor here today, especially 2-0, that would be the surprise of the day. That would absolutely top it all. Now, we're not there yet. Reynor is having a much better game 2 than he had game 1, and even in that first game where he was in all sorts of throw after losing all the drones, he was fine in the end, but SpeCial is no slouch, and he's a very experienced player. He kind of knows how to play games like this out, and I think the SpeCial's got to be feeling quite good, as he does get a bit greedy there, tried to pick up the Infestor, but Reynor was paying attention, and as the picture-in-picture is showing us, the first Viper is out.
Yeah, that's going to be big. I mean, I don't think anyone needs too much of a reminder to go back to the last game and the effectiveness of Vipers when they're in Reynor's hands, especially against that kind of big siege tank setup. But this is also a very different composition from the last game that Special's got. He's got that Bioforce. It's a lot more mobile. It's a lot better equipped to deal with those Vipers as well. So we'll see if Reynor can make a lot happen with them.
First lurker's on the way, and the first lurker upgrade has been fired up as well. Reynor goes for seismic spine, so range over speed. He probably feels that as long as he gets a couple of lurkers out with those seismic spines, that he's always going to be fine and unbreakable if he supports them with the Vipers. SpeCial is still building tanks, liberators, and kind of just waiting for the 2-2 upgrades to kick in. And this is honestly going to be pretty difficult, I think, for Reynor, because without those lurkers, his army would not stand a chance. So it's very important that he babysits those properly, as he's getting a couple of extra. Lurker count now goes up to 4, and Reynor feels confident enough to split up these roaches and go for a counterattack. Maybe he feels that they won't really add a whole lot in the fight, but they're also not going to add a whole lot here, as the majority of these roaches get picked up without getting anything done.
Yeah, don't even actually slow down the reinforcements very much. A SpeCial just pounces on everything.
Whoa, what?
SpeCial also bypassing a lot of the, I mean, not only spore crawlers and everything, but bypasses all the lurkers as well. Heads straight over to the main base with a lot of these medevacs. One of the medevac. That's a painful loss, but this is still super out of position for Reynor.
Look at the BD map, man. SpeCial is just rallying everything that he has into different bases. A triangle base, the base at the bottom side of the map, as those units just ran by. Liberator is going to siege up as well. Reynor sent a lot of his units into the main base. The spore crawlers are absolute MVPs here, because it would be a nightmare to run into the bio army if they are protected by multiple liberators. But the spore crawlers have taken care of the libs. Nice fungal there by SpeCial, excuse me, by Reynor, and SpeCial does end up losing one of the medevacs. Parasitic bomb is going to guarantee Reynor the double kill. And in the end, all these Terran units will fall. But hey, at least SpeCial gets the base at the bottom side of the map, and he got the spawning pool.
It's kind of wild. I mean, SpeCial's basically been out multitasking Reynor to a degree. Now, Reynor definitely is working with units that are not necessarily great for like really capitalizing on multitasking abilities, such as roaches, such as adding on some of those Vipers or the Hydras and everything. But SpeCial has just been rallying out so many units that against an extremely fast player, he's been able to find consistent damage. It is honestly really impressive.
He found a lot of damage, but he also took a lot of damage, though. We have to mention that he lost pretty much all of the units that he picked up, tried to drop into the main base, then lost a bunch of units that he rallied into the triangle base as well, where he was battling a couple of lurkers that were sieged up. And it's not that SpeCial already has all-out ghost production going on his side of the map. Like, I would have been completely fine with all of those trades, and I still think it was quite good for SpeCial, don't get me wrong. But it'd be a whole lot better if he already started producing ghost. Now he still needs to be very careful, because Reynor's army in a straight-up fight is a lot better than SpeCial's army at the moment. But Reynor is probably a bit paranoid and does not want to move out, because if you do move out, then you basically put yourself in a position where you need to get the kill immediately. You have a big fight happening in the bottom side of the map as well. I think it's a slightly more important fight, as some of the lurkers have gone down, and now another lurker is going to be the target of these marauders. Queens cannot save it. SpeCial is bossing out all the stops, and this time around, while sure he's losing a lot of units, he does have the ghost production up and rolling, and that's the most important thing for a Mexican Terran player at the moment.
Yeah, especially after he softened up that lurker count, those ghosts, even just a handful of them, are going to be able to add so much value to this army. And in these trades, it's going to make things a lot more costly for Reynor to deal with. SpeCial not actually halting any of the aggression, though. Hasn't even brought in the ghosts to the army just yet, but is continuing to just try and find little trades here and there. But the Vipers going to chase after these medevacs, ensuring there's no pickup, and all of these units should end up dying, is what I wanted to say. But maybe a couple of them will escape, because SpeCial is attacking on the other side as well.
Wow, finds the infestor, but if he finds this hatchery, that would be such a big W. The lurkers have moved a little bit towards the right. SpeCial doing a great job in trying to avoid the spikes. We need to go full boxer here and avoid those spikes. A marauder and a duel. Are you kidding me? A single hit or 2 hits away, and that hatchery will fall over. But obviously SpeCial knows about how low on HP it is, so he could maybe pick up a few more units. Reynor is sending it. Observer, can we grab quickly? I don't think that Reynor has adaptive talents yet, right? Does he? I know he's got seismic spines. No, he does have the adaptive talents upgrade too. And his army is big, and just like that, 126 army supply of the Zerg in the end will get it done. Even though Reynor, honestly, it felt that he was in a somewhat vulnerable spot. He hung in there, he got the lurkers, and once it was a lot of SpeCial attacking, but the first time that Reynor truly decided to attack, it was all over immediately.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really, really well in just that Reynor had, for a lot of that game, just the better army. And SpeCial was able to force these really incredible fights where it was him attacking on so many different fronts, and he was finding damage for sure, don't get me wrong. But like you said also, it was always at a cost. It was always at a bit of a cost. So SpeCial was trading decently, but Reynor's army just kept getting better and better and better. And the transitions for SpeCial, because he was, you know, investing a lot into those attacks, didn't really get the transition set up quite as quickly. So he never really got to a point where he could just take on Reynor's full force army together.
It was super important for SpeCial to somehow try to keep Reynor on his side of the map while he was increasing his ghost count. And for a split second, I was like, I actually think it's all going kind of well. I mean, he's on 4 bases. Reynor is technically on 4 bases because that one hatchery was 1 hit away from dying, and it wasn't that well saturated. Reynor didn't have a crazy amount of drones, but what Reynor did have was that 8-minute hive tech eventually paying off. Bunch of Vipers. There were some infestors that didn't have the biggest impact, but it's mostly the lurkers with both of their hive tech upgrades, and then a few Vipers in the mix. That's just so difficult for bio units to battle. But even if Reynor won that game, I still think SpeCial played very well once more, and no matter what happens in game 3, I've been really entertained. I'm already very proud of the Juanito that we see today, because I was wondering if that Katowice was that a one-off. Well, maybe that's just a new SpeCial, and just like Oliveira, he too has leveled up a little bit.
All right, Kev, we're hopping into game number 3. The map is going to be Gresvan, and we are going to be heading into the top left-hand side of the map. Atop of the red, Zerg player from Basilisk, he is Reynor.
Duking it out with this man who is definitely surprising me, and I'm sure a couple of others out there, as he's really bringing the fight to that Italian kid that once upon a time got the best of him when he was only 15. Now they're both grown up, but this man is showing us that he still got it. Sidestorm Gaming's is SpeCial.
All right, Kev, does SpeCial proxy the starport again?
I want to say no. I think in the first game it was super awesome and it really paid dividends. In the second game I would not say it was bad, it's just that Reynor picked up on it rather quickly. But in the end he was still able to float it home and didn't even have to spend all that time, right, to make sure that it would land safely in the main base. He just kind of landed it at the 4th base and kept it alive forever. But no, I don't think he's gonna do that again.
I think that was the most impressive thing to me, is that SpeCial still just gets away with the starport, not really floating all the way back home in both of those games. Still finding some value from it, but
it is safe to say though that SpeCial has definitely earned Reynor's respect, even though I'm sure he already had that. But while Reynor went very safe, you know, pull first into hatchery in the first map, and it was suddenly like, whoa, okay, that did not go well. We did see Reynor go hatchery first in game 2, and we see him go hatchery first in game 3 as well. Now, it's not a night and day difference, but let's be honest, right? If you feel that it's going to be a difficult game, it's a hard game, you want to make sure that you get the best possible economy to start off with. So Reynor definitely, well, realizing that today is not a walk in the park and he needs to go for the strong economic openings and take that chance that, yes, you could get 2-rexed proxy, but then you're just going to have to defend the hard way.
yeah. I think one of the actual real bigger questions on my mind is going to be SpeCial went for that sort of battle mech style in game number 1, and I want to really add that that was complemented heavily by the whole Liberator proxy that actually got a lot of damage done. Like that starport, like you said, got a lot of damage done in game number 1. In game number 2, I mean, his bio play looked also really solid. So do you have a preference, whether it be based on the map, based on how the games went, or anything, on which one do you think would make more sense for SpeCial to do here?
It's very difficult because I do think obviously he looked great with the battle mech, but we cannot ignore the phenomenal start he had with the Hellions and the Liberators, and there is no guarantee you get a start like that over and over again. I think back of some of the games that I've seen of Reynor where he goes up against world-class battle mech players. I would actually think, like, I'm a bio lover, Fear Dragon, I'm gonna be honest. If you ever ask me bio or mech, I will always say bio. But if I was the coach of SpeCial, yeah, I would probably recommend him to try something along the lines of mech, whether it's with Hyperflight Rotors, Banshees, or just Blue Flame Hellions and Cyclones early on, or maybe a couple of battle cruisers to begin with. I actually do think that SpeCial has a slightly higher win percentage with battle mech than he would have with bio against Reynor.
Oh, I totally believe that as well. I think that SpeCial's got... Sometimes I watch SpeCial play his, especially the battle cruiser style mech, and it just looks a little bit dirty. It looks a little bit frustrating to play against because he's so good at it. He's really nailed a lot of the nuances of it. Now, speaking of nailing some nuances over here, I think that these Reapers are nailing some drones, as we already have a couple of them going down.
Fear Dragon, behave, mate. It's not that long. No, but this was a beautiful little run by, and 2 out of 3 Reapers actually managed to get out of there. So it's lost mining time, 2 drones falling, drones chasing, Lynx falling, and 2 out of 3 Reapers actually made it home. Now, will they be able to stay safe, though? As the Lynx are putting on the chase, there are a couple of Hellions that could help out, and the Reapers will safely hop into the main base. Beautiful start. Reynor drops the Roach Warren, which to me is a very strong indication that he is expecting SpeCial to play Battle Mech. And now I wonder if for the first time Reynor will be the original aggressor and maybe bust out some of those ZVP specials, right? Like the German Uber. Fly a couple queens to the other side of the map like he did against Gumio and Ancient at IEM Katowice.
I always am a little bit nervous when I see those kind of Zerg attacks because sometimes it feels like it's always one or the other. Either it really just demolishes a Terran player, or I feel like it gets hard shut down. And I'm a little bit worried that I oftentimes don't feel like I get to see a lot of the in-between there, Kev. I'm not sure which one's going to be here.
This is interesting because Reynor is obviously not going for something that I mentioned. He's going to attack way earlier even. So it's going to be Roaches, Lynx, maybe a couple of Ravagers. Perhaps this is a play that is designed to deal with the low ground add-ons, right? That SpeCial's working with. But that is such a phenomenal scout for SpeCial. That Hellion sees it immediately. If I was Juanito, I think I would bring this Raven home because he needs defensive units. He needs at least 1, if not 2 bunkers. And I think there is a good chance that Stim is going to get cancelled. But let's get the Ravens home. Let's crank out that Banshee. Chrono boost it. I know that's not a thing, but he should chrono boost it. But then it's honestly, I think, going to be totally fine because this is a big commitment for Reynor. And I don't know if he's going to get done what he's looking for.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to start working away at one of the supply depots, but there is already another wall coming up behind it with the barracks. That is going to supply block special. He doesn't have any supply depots on the way right now, Kev.
That is definitely a problem, but he can always fight with the Hellions, free up some supply. Now, the most important thing is obviously for SpeCial, never, ever lose this Banshee. As long as you don't lose this Banshee, that Banshee will never fall. I mean, that's obvious, as we do have a couple of corrosive valves going down. Good connection, but the bunker is still alive. And look at these Hellions getting some absolutely amazing shots off on the Zerglings. And this isn't just a hold, Fear Dragon. This is a slam dunk defense for Juanito. Don't lose that Banshee, as he does fly into a couple of corrosive valves, but beautiful defense. I mean, absolutely love that secondary wall, and he now even has the confidence to go this far out. That may have been a little bit of a mistake, but even despite losing all these Hellions, I think this game is looking magnificent for SpeCial.
A Zerg player going for that kind of attack does not usually have a transition setup. Lair gets started up at almost 6 minutes and 40 seconds into the game. That just goes to show you how far away Reynor is from his transitions. He does not have a 4th base. He doesn't have any kind of future game plans, and all he's really got now to work with are a handful of those speedlings that are running around the map.
Yep, it's just important for SpeCial not to make a catastrophic mistake here, letting all these lings run into the main base while his units are out of position, because at this point this really is his game to lose. Reynor may have a little worker advantage, but that's not all that important. Reynor's got no upgrades. Reynor has a very late lair. The evolution chambers are only going down now. It's going to actually be rather difficult for Reynor to get a whole lot of creep going against the double Raven opening and the Banshee that's flying around. So there are very little things going Reynor's way other than these lings that he still has out and about roaming the map.
Yeah. I mean, hey, Reynor is the king of lings, so he can still find little opportunities to get little run-bys, but I think this is another frustration here, Kev, probably for Reynor, is that we're not exactly at a stage in the game where your opponent's on 5 different bases and you can really find those golden opportunities to get the run-bys in really easily because there's already so much going on. This is kind of the stage of the game where there's not that many places you have to worry about defending. You make sure your depot is raised, make sure your 3rd base is covered, and hey, maybe you also have a drop out on the map or something, but I think SpeCial is going to be very difficult to break with that. We do have a drop overlord coming in, though, and that is a cute way way to put on a bit of harass.
Yep, I think 8 links were hopping into the drop overlord, and that drop overlord flying into the main base. Reynor knows that he just needs to buy time, because at this point his army is not strong enough to deal with the army of SpeCial. So A, keep SpeCial at home, and B, buy time, and C, hey, if we're fortunate, we can actually find a bunch of damage. But I think, oh my goodness, we don't even have overlord speed, so this is a rather slow drop alert, but it is still going to allow a couple of links to show up in the main base and be annoying. Reynor could even morph 2 of those links into banelings in the corner of the main base of SpeCial, but I mean, Reynor needs some magic real soon, mate, because SpeCial is ready to battle. He's got the 1-1 upgrades, he's got a lot of Marines, and he's loving the idea of fighting at the edge of creep or off creep.
Yeah, that slow overlord is going to be moving on in, but is the game going to be over before it even makes its way to the main base? Bailey's getting target fire down. Beautiful micro there from SpeCial to ensure he is able to pick up before too much happens. The overlord moves so slowly that SpeCial doesn't notice it. It's like that scene from Guardians of the Galaxy. If he just moves slowly enough, maybe they won't see it, but
well, he did.
SpeCial is there. Yeah. He is reacting.
Yeah. This is not getting anything done, and obviously there's no way home because it's so freaking slow. Reynor actually fires up a hive, and that's a very ambitious hive if I've ever seen one, but maybe desperate times call for desperate measures as a couple of the Marines get sniped from the high ground. The Ravens really have been a pain in the butt for Reynor, as they are just dropping all the turrets left, right, and center. Reynor can be bothered to pull drones away each and every single time, but he's been losing more than a handful of drones at this point to that Raven arrest. I would love to see SpeCial just grab the units right now and move out exactly like this. I didn't actually see that yet on the minimap because it was blocked for me. But yeah, it's go time, right? There's no need for SpeCial to sit back while Reynor is going up to hive tech. Now, obviously, you don't want to get surrounded on creep. There is one tank sieged up on the high ground. Reynor is getting a much better fight than he's supposed to get, but it's obviously not over yet.
Yeah, Siege Tank Sieges up in that mineral line with a handful of those Marines to try and protect it. 9 drones also going down during all this, but Medevac in the main base not really getting an opportunity to unload it all over here. So if Reynor can clean this up cost efficiently, and it feels like he's going to be able to clean up the Siege Tank, if he can deal with the Marines, I actually don't know that. I mean, it's still pretty rough, actually.
Yeah, it's very rough. I mean, I think that was beautiful by SpeCial, making it so hard for Reynor to get on top of the tank. And by the time he finally does get on top of the tank, the Marines hop back into the medevac. They get unloaded again on the low ground. Juanito is just all over the place. I mean, all that time in the gym is really paying off. Not just because he's getting more handsome and stronger. Apparently, he's getting a whole lot faster, too, because he is all over the place once more. And Reynor really is running on his last legs, trying to get those Vipers out that were so big for him in that first game, and obviously kind of big in the second game as well. But I'm afraid that SpeCial is not gonna let those Vipers see the light of day. Or, well, maybe they will see the light of day, but they're gonna be all alone because the majority of the Lings and Banelings have fallen.
Yeah. SpeCial definitely came into this series looking like a bit of an underdog despite being such a strong player. It was just Reynor he was going up against. It just seemed like it was going to be a bad matchup in a lot of ways, but my God, has he definitely turned around a lot of people's minds on how strong of a player he is right now and how good his form is right now. Katowice, like you said, Kev, it was not a fluke.
Nope, it really isn't. The Raven Raz has been spectacular throughout the series, and normally it's so easy to lose one of those Ravens against the Queens because we know how quick Reynor can be, but it really just does feel that SpeCial got the best of Reynor, not just in the mind games or in the build orders, but in a lot of these exchanges. Reynor is going to go for the Hail Mary play here, does land a very sexy Blinding Cloud on the Marines and on the tank, so he's going to be able to pick up one more tank, but there are so many Terran units all over the place. Raven still dropping other turrets in the main. That Viper is down to 1 HP or 5 HP, whatever it is. The hatchery will fall. And Reynor, I think he knows that this one is pretty much over, but he's still trying, still battling, does finally get the Raven. Do we have Adreno Glance, by the way? Is that an upgrade that Reynor managed to get his hands on? No.
I have a hard time imagining him being able to afford that right now, especially after losing that last hatchery. He's going to be able to get a beautiful surround on all these Marines, clean up the Siege Tank, and push SpeCial back. So SpeCial's going to need some time to regroup, but a lot of his reinforcements reinforcements are also getting caught. Is there maybe some universe where Reynor can buy himself enough time to get up the base and everything? I mean, he has still such an uphill battle to climb up against.
Yeah, he has to climb the Mount Everest here, and there is no cheating, no oxygen tanks on the back, and no help or anything. But I guess there is always a universe, right? We've seen a couple of crazy comebacks over the last few weeks, and we know that Reynor is possible of crazy comebacks. But at this point, it really does not feel like an unfair fight. One guy has a hammer, the other one has a machine gun. But hey, we'll see. Obviously, sometimes it's not even up to Reynor, but it could be up to SpeCial, right? If SpeCial gets concerned, if he gets nervous and he's not quite sure how he wants to end this game, and he gives Reynor too much time, then there is always a chance. But so far, it does not really seem that SpeCial is letting his foot go off the gas, as the Parasitics bomb will not kill these medevacs. Every single medevac survives. When it rains, it pours for Reynor, and SpeCial is just getting further and further ahead. Beautiful run by Dare for a split second right before the planetary finishes up, but once more Fear Dragon. So much freaking Terran everywhere.
He really is everywhere, and even the trades that he takes that are relatively even are heavily in favor of SpeCial, because an even trade is going to favor the player who has the better economy. At this point, SpeCial is continuing to just shut down so much of the mining. Even when the hatcheries aren't dying, there's not much mining happening right there. There it is, 2-1 for SpeCial, and he is going to move on to the next round. Absolutely phenomenal showing here for SpeCial in that first round.
We often say somebody played out of their mind, and then sometimes I think, okay, we're getting a bit carried away. We say that everybody's playing out of their mind. No one is playing out of their mind, but SpeCial absolutely peaked there. He played amazing, got a great scout in-game tree, knew about the attack, and handled the defense perfectly. We don't care about that supply block if you get Hellion shots like that. We loved it. Let's see what Kalaris in the Kalaris Dome and the boys at the desk have to say about it.
Thanks, gents. I can see the YouTube title now. Gutted by the Guardian of Guadalajara. Unfortunate here for Reynor, as he is going down in what is... We've already seen many upsets here today, but this is by far the biggest. Joining me, Cats as well as Loco. Cats, what a series from SpeCial. He played a blinder. Maybe Loco. Can anyone hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. I can't hear Cats, though. So
Oh, you can't hear Cats? Okay, well, I can hear Cats.
Oh.
Anyways, he was just talking about the blinding clouds and bringing up the fact that this was an amazing series. I mean, honestly, such an impressive performance right here coming out of SpeCial, right? I mean, the fact that... Well, we said it as well, right? Before the series started, that he is historically not done particularly well against Reynor, but doing such an amazing job in this series.
yeah, definitely. These highlights brought to you by Aramco. Can I hear Cats now is the question. Still no.
I can hear him.
Damn it. I wish I could
I'm assuming
hear
you
Cats.
guys can't? Okay, well...
Just repeat everything he says, Loco. Go. No.
Says, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me now? That's what he's saying.
We'll talk about this series, Loco, before we get that fixed up and good to go here. I mean, as we look back at this game 3 as well, I did think, you know, there were some moments here where Reynor's trying to put his foot on the pedal, but honestly, SpeCial, just great multitasking, great pressure throughout, and was able to take it.
Such a fun series as well, though, right? Like game number 1, opening up with that proxy liberator style, just trying to catch Reynor off guard a little bit. Cats' hands are up in the air. Can you try again, Cats? Does it work now?
Wait, can the stream not hear me? Loco can hear me.
I can hear you now,
I
actually.
can hear you just fine.
I can hear you now. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah. I'm sure everything you said was very insightful, Cats, during...
I muted and unmuted after. I unmuted the web browser, but now you can hear me.
Yeah, I can,
It wasn't muted before, yeah.
That's weird.
Okay, well, I am gonna assume everyone can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Yeah.
That was incredible.
You know, I'm being told we were ready for a break anyway, mate. So great contributions, Cats, during this segment. I loved it. We're going to a break here. We've got one more series to go. SpeCial with a 2-1. Fantastic stuff. Cats really broke it down very well. We're going to go to that break. When we return, more Gamers Without Borders.